So thanks for joining us. I'm Yolanda Methvin, and today I'm in conversation with Nazeer Sonday from the PHA Horticulture Area Food and Farming Campaign, and Gareth Haysom, researcher at the Africa Center for Cities at UCT. Thanks again for joining us. Gareth, to get us started, can you just tell us, what does the Africa Center for Cities do at UCT?
So the Africa Center for Cities is a research unit at UCT, and as the name denotes, it really tries to understand the changing dynamics of cities in Africa, and also more broadly in the so-called Global South. And it has a number of different research components that all feed into it. There are a number of researchers from very different backgrounds, and urban food research is one of those research areas that we focus on, and then try to see how that connects into all these other different factors or symptoms that are playing out in cities around in the Global South and in Africa.
Okay. So just to be clear, UCT doesn't have its own urban farm.
No, UCT doesn't have an urban farm. But I think it's also part of, and the ACC doesn't have one either, but it's also part of how the African Center for Cities works and functions, is that it recognizes that pools of knowledge elsewhere. So there are urban farmers who are practicing, and other forms of urban food system actors like informal traders or retailers, and so we would engage them for their knowledge and engage with the farmers at the PHA Horticultural Area as one example, and work with them rather than trying to do it ourselves.
So that sounds like your area, Nazeer. So PHA, an urban farm in PHA, how does that work? Isn't it truly urban? Are the farms sort of interspersed, located within the neighborhood?
Well, I'm confused at times whether we're urban or rural. Because we are in an urban setting, we are surrounded by the suburbs, but we're also rural in that our infrastructure and our landscape is rural. So, so we located in the middle of the Cape Flats, surrounding all kinds of suburbs, which is also our market.
Okay. So then, how did you become involved in the PHA, which is the acronym for PHA Horticulture Area Food and Farming Campaign? Are you from the area originally, or were you a farmer originally?
Well, I was born in the area, and when I was 5 years old, our family was removed out of the area to make way for the colored township of Lotus River. And so yes, I was born in the area, and I returned to the area in 1991, where I bought a 1 hectare farm, small holding.
Okay, okay. And Gareth, how is it that the ACC, the Africa Center for Cities, got involved in doing any sort of urban farming research?
So I think as the ACC looks, or the African Center for Cities tries to understand changing dynamics in cities, one of the greatest changes taking place is around food, and how people get food and how they access food. And so urban agriculture was certainly my own entry point. I became very interested in it from a sustainability perspective, from an economic opportunity, but also from a community cohesion point of view. But I think what I started to realize was that it was one symptom of a wider food system that was in trouble and crumbling. And as African cities were growing rapidly, there wasn't really any attention being paid to how these cities were getting food, how they were feeding themselves. And so it was really important. For me, the ACC was an ideal place to try and understand how cities got food, and to look at urban agriculture, but also a whole set of other food system processes and activities that take place.
So, Nazeer, in the way that you said, it's a little bit uncertain whether you're urban or rural. Can you both give me an explanation of what urban agriculture actually means?
Well, I want Gareth to go first. He's the expert on urban agriculture.
For me, I would argue that urban agriculture is any form of production, be it horticultural production, be it livestock, be it keeping chickens, even vineyards that take place within the city, or even in the sort of peri-urban areas outside the city. I think for me, the determining factor is this close relationship with the urban form and the urban space. It can happen on land that is zoned as agriculture. It can happen in backyards. It can happen on rooftops. It can happen anywhere. So it takes on multiple forms or multiple types, But I think the connection to the city and the proximity to the city and the use of resources from the city into it and how it serves that city is a core component of urban agriculture.
And would your definition differ when you are seeing yourself from the perspective of the PHA?
Well, as a farmer, I see things differently. As a farmer, I need to have access to land to farm, and we happen to be blessed with this land in the Philippine horticulture area, 3,000 hectares, that produces tons and tons of vegetables, and there is room for us to expand this, and there is a room for emerging farmers to access land in this area. And so for me, it's urban agriculture in one way, but it's also just farming area in another way. I get what Gareth is saying, is that urban agriculture is where families, households engage in planting food, right? Or using open spaces for cattle, for goats, and so on. And that is the African way of things, There is no clear boundary between urban and rural. A lot of the rural stuff is happening in urban centers, And so growing your own food is also part of that. I call it nutrition greening. It's not like greening like with trees and shrubs, but food greening the environment. And that has a lot of benefits for people in the city, because it connects into the soil. It's an environmental benefit. It's a health benefit. And it's also a benefit for feeding a family.
So it sounds like whether we're talking nutrition greening, urban farming, ultimately we get to the idea of food security.
Yes.
And it seems that somehow we can't get away from that these days. I'd like for you guys to talk to us a little bit about that. We're going to need to go to a commercial break, and we'd like for you to come back and stay with us as we're taking a bite out of land use, water resource management, urban agriculture, and nutrition greening. Stay with us.